Welcome to the Sports Game Podcast with Paul Catalina. One of our recurring bits is something you missed. And today we're going to talk about college basketball, players going back to college basketball, and those that are staying in the NBA draft and how that affects the teams that it happened to. This is brought to you by American Tourister. Go to 365sportsdeals.com, click on the American Tourister logo. I have an American Tourister suitcase. It's one of the favorite suitcases I've ever had in my life. They have so much different stuff that you can pick out. Hard shell, soft, all on wheels. Don't get a suitcase without wheels now. It's 2026. Get with the times. Anyways, go to 365sportsdeals.com. Click on the American Tourister link, and that's the end of the commercial, but don't feel like you shouldn't be obligated to go do that because I really need you to. Anyhow, let's talk about the NBA draft deadline and the withdrawals. Biggest two might both wind up at St. John's. One of them for sure. Tounde Yessoufou, guard at Baylor. Excellent scorer when he gets hot, needs his shooting percentage to go up. He is withdrawn from the NBA draft. He had also entered the portal pretty much on the same day. He was not coming back to Baylor. I don't think Scott Drew and staff expected him to be back at Baylor. I'm sure they probably made some effort to get him back, but I think he was always thought to be a one and done either way because that's how college basketball goes now. Now, what does he bring to St. John's? He brings a scorer. He is from that region of the country in the Northeast, so he'll be closer to home. And Rick Pitino has someone that he needs to develop defensively a little bit better and cut down on the turnovers, but someone with outstanding potential who had some big games for Baylor in a rough season this past year. As a matter of fact, Yessoufou, Cameron Carr, both gone. Cameron Carr will stay in the draft, but Baylor might actually be better without them, not because they're gone, just because their team will be built better this year than it was last year because the Rob Wright situation threw them into flux as the ladies had happened. But back to Tounde Yessoufou and St. John's. He gives them potentially a top 10, top 5 roster if everything works out. And we'll talk about one player that they could get a little bit later in this segment. Other players going back, one I love, Tyler Tanner going back to Vanderbilt. Mark Byington's roster is loaded at Vandy. That's a school that's finally committed to athletics and academics. Let's just call it equally, even though I know it's not. But their basketball team could very, very, very well be in the Final Four next year with Tyler Tanner back. They have built one of the best transfer rosters this offseason. Mark Byington is one of the most interesting and dynamic young coaches in the game. He's committed to Vanderbilt. I thought he might be up for the North Carolina job because he's a North Carolina native. Obviously, that's not the direction that they went. And with Tyler Tanner going back to Vanderbilt, that gives them a deep roster and a point guard to build around. And point guards are hard to find, as you know, if you watch college basketball. Another big-time returnee to college basketball, Iowa State's Milan Momcilovic is back in the portal. Now, he's not going back to Ames. That ship has sailed, and that's a bummer because he was really good with a really good team there. However, he will capitalize on being able to get more money from a richer athletic department, although playing for TJ Otzelberger in Ames, not too shabby. And I think he'll probably miss it a little bit, but huge, maybe the biggest free agent to hit college basketball this offseason. And that's what I'm going to start calling them, not transfers, free agents, because that's what he is. This guy can bomb threes. He can fill it up scoring. He's getting better and better with his complete game every single day. Did not think he would stay in the draft. I really didn't. I thought he would come back. Now, Kentucky is seen as the early favorites, and maybe they're a better fit, but Arizona has an opening because Koa Pete is staying in the draft in spite of maybe some rough workouts at the combine. He has enough potential where he thinks he's going to go in the top 20, and good for Koa Pete, but it's a loss for Arizona. Me personally, if it were coming down to where I'm going to win more, what might highlight my skills more, I would play for Arizona or St. John's, who are two of the four teams seen to be in the hunt. Louisville's built an outstanding portal class 2 with guys like Flory Badunga coming in. Milan Momcilovic clearly interested in Louisville as well. We'll see if he gets there. I would say that's probably his fourth choice, and I think it's Kentucky, St. John's, Arizona, and Louisville in that order. But it's all going to come down to money maybe overfit, but Kentucky going to go hard for him. I think the better fits are Arizona and St. John's. If St. John's can wrap him up and Tounde Yessoufou in the same week, that's going to be something incredible. Now, I mentioned Koa Pete staying in. It's a bummer for Arizona. He's going to be a tough player to replace. He was really good for them last year, and he come back. This is a team that could repeat perhaps on its Final Four success from this past season. That was one of the most loaded teams in the country last year. The way that they lost in the Final Four was still an absolute shock to me, because that was a team that just blew people out and had so many different ways to score. They're down Koa Pete. That's going to suck for them. And he wasn't really, because they were so on the fence about him, able to replace him with a player of that caliber. But I still have faith in Arizona and what they'll be able to do this year in the Big 12. Another Big 12 departure that sucks for Texas Tech is Christian Anderson. He stays in. Now, Grant McCaslin has filled preparing for Christian Anderson not to leave the draft. I think he's going to be a really nice NBA player. Christian Anderson spots up threes, really good, long, great shot, all those things that the NBA is looking for. I think he can contribute to a team right away, and he's going to be picked in the middle of the late of that first round. So he might wind up going to a pretty good team and being able to contribute perhaps even in the postseason next year. I think Christian Anderson is a nice pick in the middle to the late parts of the draft for anybody, but he's not coming back to Tech. They've prepared for the loss, but it's tough to not have him back, because he was, especially down the stretch, such a key player for them. But that's something you may have missed, the players going back to college or staying in the NBA draft, which is just barreling down at us here in the next month. This has been Something You Missed. I'm Paul Catalina. Please like and subscribe to the brand new 365 Sports Extras.